I am joined now by Tristan Connelly, who will fight at UFC 261 on April the 24th when he meets Pat Sabatini. Tristan, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you for the time. And as I was saying before we went live here, big win in your UFC debut over Michel Pereira. But man, that was so long ago now. It was all the way back in
I
2019.
know. I know it's been a whirlwind of a year for everyone, but for me, the ups and downs, the highs and the lows has been crazy because I went from, preparing to fight. I was getting ready to fight Alex De Silva, and I was on one of the three cards that was actually canceled because of COVID. And then I got sent. Like I was in Vegas at the time training. I came back to Canada, and then being in quarantine and inactive for 2 months is what set off an injury from a car accident from about a year and a half before that. And then my symptoms went from 10% what they were to like 1,500%, like over a course of 5 days. Got an MRI and I was like, oh my god, like this is way worse than what we thought. I tried to rehab it for about 3 months. I made very little, putting all my effort in, made very little headway. Came clear that I needed surgery, talked to several surgeons, and ended up making the choice to get the artificial disc replacement in my neck. Got the surgery. Surgery went whole crazy story with the surgery too, but they ended up going well. And I rehabbed that, and now I've been back in Vegas for a few months, going 100%, and feeling better than ever, and ready to get back in there.
Yeah, obviously you'll always have the regular bumps and bruises from a training camp, but are you feeling as good as you have in a while?
Oh, yeah, I feel great. I mean, obviously, yeah, bumps and bruises, but my body is holding up great. I mean, I everything since the surgery, my neck's just been gotten better and better. I haven't had any concerns with that, and I had nothing else in my body that's really bugging me. I mean, for a 35-year-old that's been fighting for 10 years, I got no complaints. I feel better than ever. I feel fitter than ever. I feel healthier than ever. I feel stronger than ever. I've gone from like I do this full time and I have been for a long time. Like I've putting everything into fighting. So this last having that time off was really in years the first time I'd been inactive, and I started feeling like crap just from not moving. And I guess I'm like, is this what normal people feel like all the time? Like I'm used to always being at a high level of athleticism, so it's felt really good to get back to where I'm at. I've barely taken a day. I've been in Vegas for 3 months almost. I've maybe taken 2 days where I've done almost nothing. I've trained almost every day at least once, most days twice, and like I feel great. I don't feel like overtrained. I don't feel fatigued. My weight's coming down now. I'm barely eating everything. My energy level's good, so I'm rearing to go.
Now, are you spending the majority of your time in Vegas for camp, or are you splitting it and you're in Canada sometimes as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, since I've been in the UFC, I've sort of been going back and forth a little bit. But it's for this time I've spent all my time here, and I started training and rehabbing in Canada, and I will be going back and forth in general, doing time back home. Like my wife and we had a baby as well. Like about a month before I got surgery, I had a baby, so I'm definitely going to be one of these spending time there. I miss my wife and baby so much right now. It's been about 3 months, and I can't wait to get back and see them. But I mean, the train, like, not that I don't get great training in Vancouver. I have amazing training partners in Vancouver. I just don't have the numbers that I have in Vegas. And the other thing is responsibilities in Vancouver. I have a gym. I have all these other things I have to do when I'm back home. People are always asking me to do stuff. When I'm here in Vegas, it's all I do is train. I come to the PI. My food's made for me. I get physical therapy every day. I get, strength and conditioning in a world-class facility. Instead of having 6, 7 really good guys, there's 40 really good guys, right? So, and different look, you get different looks, different styles. You get comfortable with your own team and your own guys, and it's nice to be able to, I'm fighting a guy like this. We have a guy that looks like that, right? That fights like that right here. Let's get you doing rounds with him, and then there's a lot of things, and then the focus. Like I'm just literally no distractions in Vegas. It's funny, you see, I'm in Vegas. You think there'd be distractions, but for me, it's just there's nothing but training. There's gyms and training on Sunday. I'm like, I go and I usually do. I do some jiu-jitsu in the morning, and then I'm kind of like, what am I gonna do for the rest of the day? Like, so watch some Netflix, go for a walk, try and get rid of some of this whiteness that I have all over me. You know, it doesn't seem to matter how much I go in the sun. I'm still whiter than everyone here.
I know the feeling. I'm stuck all the way up in New England, so I'm with you 100%. Well, congratulations on the new addition to your family. That's fantastic. And I also did hear recently that things in Canada have actually started to open back up again. So that must be nice for you to hear and know that as well.
BC, in my province, they shut it down again. So, but they're saying hopefully it's only supposed to be for 3 weeks instead of a week and a half in. They're saying it's just to give a little bit of time for them to get more vaccinations out. But it's, a lot of the provinces are starting to open up. BC is closing down, but seeing how things are down here in Vegas, like I've been here for 3 weeks. I mean, I got COVID in Vancouver in Canada. So, I mean, I came down here and everyone that I've trained with, everyone's had it. And so in the 3 months I've been here, not a single person has gotten COVID again. So, it speaks highly that, reinfection, at least for the variants that have been out, maybe, obviously there's the Brazil variant seems like it's reinfecting a bit, but not a single person's gotten it twice. And we're, 40 people on the mats and going to 3-4 different gyms. We're all training. No one's getting it twice. So it's I feel like that's a good example of what, once the vaccines, everyone starts, the majority of people are vaccinated or have had it, and it will go away here in the next couple of months, very hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully so. I did watch a previous interview with you and Jarrell Helwani, and I found out that you work at EA Sports. Is that something that you're still doing?
Yeah, well, nothing in the last year. Not much has happened because their whole facility is shut down as far as in-office work. I don't actually I'm not an employee of EA. I'm a contractor. So I have 2 things that I would do there. So one, I do motion capture for the UFC game. Unfortunately, that's all been shut down due to COVID right now. I think they got one shoot. It was right after I had neck surgery, so I couldn't do it anyway. But so they haven't really been doing mocap. And then the other thing is I teach jiu-jitsu and kickboxing because they have a gymnasium and fitness facility there. But that's obviously all been canceled. But as soon as they open up again, I'm still there. We're still going to be doing it. It's just kind of the waiting game right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, it's very cool. I figured I'd have to at least mention that to you. I do want to dive in and have you recap that big win over Michel Pereira. You took that fight on 5 days' notice at 170 pounds. Your next fight here against Pat is going to be at featherweight. I guess my first question is, did you ever second guess taking a fight against a guy so much bigger on such short notice, or did you feel stylistically this matchup against him was just going to favor you?
Well, I mean, there's 2 things you have to think about. So the first thing is, I didn't care who it was. If the UFC is going to offer me a contract, I would go in there and fight anyone. They could offer me a fight at heavyweight. I know they'd never do that, but I would have taken it just to get a UFC contract. And any fighter that's put the time that I put in and that's their hopes and dreams. When you get that offer, you say no, they're probably never come back. You say yes. So I didn't even, when I found out welterweight was out, I didn't even look at if he was fighting the opponent. I just said, am I going to get it? Can I get on there? And we were like, and my manager Jason's like, wow, he's a massive welterweight, and they're concerned that it's just too much of a size difference. So at first, that's why I said 5 days notice, because DC's like, it was 7 days notice. I'm like, no, because at 7 days when we found out that he was out, they were saying, you're not getting it. They're like, so Saturday went by, they're like, yeah, it's not going to be you. You're too small. And then Sunday rolled around. They're like, well, actually, you know what? Maybe, but probably not. They're still looking elsewhere. And then Monday rolled around and it's like, well, so do they have anyone? It's like, no, I have all my medicals. I have everything done. And Jason was just pushing me. And it was like 10 o'clock at night on just before 10. I was just finishing up teaching a class when I finally got the call from Jason and found out it was on, and I, off the races.
Did you feel I mean, you've been at this game for a while now. You're 14-6 as a pro. Did you feel like an added, pressure going into this fight, on short notice like that?
Actually, no, I had no pressure on me because I mean, it was almost like because I mean, one, I'm supposed to get murdered. So worst case, I go out with that flying knee landed in the first round and put me out. Yeah, it was supposed to happen. Whatever. Now I got a UFC contract and I can go back to my regular weight class and fight. But I honestly, after watching the tape and seeing it, I'm like, I know how to beat this guy. Like I have guys that one of the best capoeira families in the world, the Hache Capoeira, who is one of the biggest capoeira brands in the world. Well, the grand master of its kids and all the cousins all live in Vancouver, and I've been training with them for years. And these guys, it's not just flashy capoeira; they're all MMA based. They are all MMA fighters. They have fantastic boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, but they also can jump, flip, spin. They actually all do stunt work for movies. That's because they're like they can do the stuff that everyone else hurts themselves doing without even warming up. And so I was like, okay, well, he's gonna completely underestimate me because I'm smaller and kind of a short notice. So he's going to do more whatever he's done in his past fights. So if people are like, it's unpredictable. Like, I mean, it was pretty predictable. I know when he's hanging off the fence and doing backflips off the fence, like, I mean, I can predict that he's going to do a lot of, I don't want to say dumb, but, unorthodox stuff. And so I knew that the first round is just about not trying to go after him too hard and overcommit and leave myself open. I just had to be in his face, but be tight enough that when he hit me that I knew I had a stable position, a stable base. If he started really going crazy, just get out of there and let him jump and spin and just completely disengage. So for those 4 days before the fight, my buddy Radley De Silva, he was just getting there, jumping, kicking up the fence, cartwheeling, flipping at me, doing rolling thunders at me, and I was just practicing, just kind of staying on, boxing, tight boxing, and then getting out. And then as soon as it only took like once that takedown and he did the backflip and turned around, I saw him take a big breath, and I was like, oh, okay, he's not flipping around anymore. He's done. So that's why normally you wouldn't go from your back up into a shot the way I did, but I saw him put his hands down, take a breath, so I just went. And then from there, I knew I was like, okay, as long as I don't let him recover, he's not going to be able to do anything crazy. And I can be able to just slowly chip away. And that's how it went.
Hey, man, well, it was a huge, huge win, and that was in your hometown. I mean, can you kind of compare how good of a feeling that was to something else in your life? I mean, it has to be one of the best moments of your life thus far.
Yeah, I mean, it's the other part of it, like, it had to be like a looking back thing because while it was happening, I was so focused on the fight. So far, it didn't matter that I was in my hometown. It didn't matter the crowd. Like, I didn't even notice the crowd. When people say, hey, it's so loud, and like the cheers were crazy, I'm like, well, I've never fought in the UFC before. Like, this is a bigger crowd. I just figured, I figured that was normal. I didn't really put anything on it. And I think that's where a lot of, you see, like, so many guys are so talented in the gym, and then they just never sort of come to what they're capable of doing because they do think about it that way. And for me, it's just I don't think about it that way. I think about it as just a fight. It's a fight. It's a fight. Like I do this all the time. It doesn't matter if there's no one there or 100,000 people. I mean, if I think about the 100,000 people, that's just going to distract me. So even when I want to walk out, I could see people that I knew like leaning over, cheering, and I like for a moment started to like think about engaging. I'm like, it's not going to do anything good. So I just eyes forward, ignored them completely, walked out, and just treated it like another day in the gym. And that's how you have to do it. You have to treat it like it's a normal moment. Otherwise, it's not going to help you in any way to put any more pressure on yourself. So the more you can just make it feel like another day, the more likely you are to perform to the best of your capabilities.
Yeah, I wanted to get you to point towards, I guess, a change in your career or your skill set because you're 14-6 now, but you started off 5-5 as a pro, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What was the change, man? Like, what was the difference that really what clicked for you to really help you turn that corner?
Well, one thing was just not quitting. Like I always say, it's not who's best, it's who's left. Like when I first started, all the guys I thought they're gonna be in the UFC, none of them are even training anymore, really. Like, and they all for one little hardship and they're out. You know, I never fought because I was like I want to be UFC world champion. I like fighting, you know, so one thing that changed is I met my wife and I moved to Vancouver, and it ended up I wasn't working in a bar anymore. I wasn't staying up all night. And I was more focused there, and I was with a more solid MMA team. But big thing, it was just continuously fighting, and my early losses were really. I've always been an actual fighter. Like day one, I could go. I was hard to submit. I could take a punch. I was down to scrap. It was just intelligence within the fight. Like you look at my losses, they're almost all decisions. I got my one loss in the last 10 is Shane Campbell, who's he knee barred me, and it was legit. And Shane's I was his 103rd fight at the time. Shane's a killer. And before that, other than that, I separated my shoulder in a fight. I got slammed, and I won the first round, and then I got suplexed in the second round, separated my shoulder, and I fought through a whole round with a separated shoulder. And in between rounds, I was like, I think my arm's dislocated, and it wasn't dislocated. It was my collarbone had completely separated from my shoulder. Other than that, it was just I won the third rounds in all my losses, but I just lost the first two rounds of just playing jiu-jitsu. I was a jiu-jitsu blue belt with no striking, so I was just playing in my guard, trying to submit, not catching it, and just losing on points. So, learning to fight more like an MMA fighter through those losses, right? Because of those losses. I kept going was a big reason why I think I've gotten to where I am. And I also had no amateur fights. So I just jumped right into pro. So I think if I had amateur fights, I probably would have learned those lessons earlier on. In my head, I like to think, 5-5, that's my amateur career, and I'm 9-1 as like an actual pro. Like that's how I'm separated in my head, even though unfortunately the record doesn't show up that way.
Hey, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So I go with it. Now, UFC 261 is your next fight, obviously April the 24th, headlined by Kamaru Usman, the champion, and Jorge Masvidal. Just want to get a fight pick. I mean, there's actually 3 title fights on this card. It is a doozy of an event, man.
Yeah, obviously, trying to go off the last fight, it's so hard because Masvidal wasn't in shape. I think Usman's probably going to take it again. But I think it's going to be a much closer fight. He's just a beast, man. He's so hard he doesn't stop. He doesn't quit. And I think, stylistically, it's going to be hard for Masvidal. Even though, like you can see last time, it was hard for Masvidal to sort of get off with that pressure of Usman. And it's definitely going to be a closer fight, I think, but I still think Usman's going to take it.
Who do you think wins the other 2 women's fights? Do you think it stays Ann Still, or are we getting any new champs?
I think Wei Li's going to win. I think she's going to be a hard one to beat for a while. I have a little bit of insight into how they train and Rose too with Whitman though. He's a strategist, so that does make it interesting. But Wei Li, like she's not allowed to be in a relationship. She's not allowed, she's like, all she's done her whole life is this, and there's nothing else. There's zero distraction. There's zero, and so that's a hard person to beat. And Shevchenko, yeah, at this point, I think Shevchenko is going to be a hard one to beat, but I think she's going to be one of those ones where I think everyone's going to think she's going to win until she loses. So you never know. I'm going to go with Shevchenko, but who knows?
I want to see Shevchenko and Nunez go at it for a third time. I think that would be cool.
Because, those were good. I only vaguely remember the last fight. It was close.
Yeah, very close. Both fights were pretty close, actually. All right, let's talk about this matchup with Pat Sabatini. He's 13-3. This is his UFC debut. He was the CFFC featherweight champion, and that's a great promotion in Philadelphia, man. Like, how do you like this matchup for yourself?
Well, I think it's going to be a wrestling match, honestly. I think he's a very good wrestler. He's a black belt and Div 1 wrestler. He looks, from what I've seen, he likes to engage in the grappling, and so do I. I like wall fighting is my favorite thing. Like I spend back home was like what we do all the time. It's like, you know, we're not going to out wrestle the Americans as Canadians and the Russians, but on the wall we can. And so that's where I strive. That's where I've won most of my fights, is not necessarily on the wall, but because of my superior wall grappling, is where I've beaten people time and time again. So I really think, and I've also, from what I've seen from his interviews and seen how the arm dislocation and how he took that was really telling about him. He is not a quitter. He's the real deal. He's there. He's doing everything right. He's not going to look for a way out. He's going to make it a hard fight. I'm the same way. I think we're very similarly minded. We're both similarly motivated. I think it's going to really come down to a war of attrition. Who can keep the output higher longer and make the other person wilt? And we're going to find out in a couple weeks.
Man, it's funny to hear you say that's your favorite aspect of MMA is your wall grappling, because that is not easy. That's like one of the hardest things in the world to do. Do you pride yourself on drilling that and making that a priority as like something that you excel at?
Yeah, absolutely. I stand by the fact that if I can get you to, like, if you want to get to get to the UFC, one of the easiest ways to ensure that is to be really good on the wall, because on the regional, in the UFC, lots of guys are good on the wall. It's not going to take you there once you get to the UFC long term, but so many guys, they practice, they kickbox, they box, they do jiu-jitsu, they do wrestling, and the only time they get anything on the wall is when they're sparring. Gyms don't even have walls, a lot of them, so they literally do nothing. So, like, if you can't strike, you can't really do jiu-jitsu, you can't wrestle, but you just focus on the wall, and every single fight on the regional scene, you just forward clinch, push into the wall, and you're going to beat guys that are really good everywhere except for on the wall. And I really think that's one of the weakest parts in a lot of people's games. And so again, it's the hardest. If you're not good at doing it, it is exhausting. So, but it's not that exhausting compared to other things when you do it all the time. Just like jiu-jitsu, like if you get a elite CrossFit athlete come in and roll for 2 minutes and they're exhausted. They can't believe how tired they are. But then after a couple of years, you're relaxed, you're smooth. Well, you can get to that way for kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, all their individual things. Now, even in MMA without the wall, but then as soon as you go to the wall, all of a sudden you're tense, you're tight, because there's a new dynamic. But if you do it enough, you get that relaxation that you get from everything else, and you be able to mesh it all together and make it smooth. And so I'm not saying it's less tiring, but it's not really a whole lot more tiring as long as you're comfortable and you're fighting at your pace within there.
Yeah, well, very well said, and I wholeheartedly agree. You said this is going to be a war of attrition. Give me an official prediction, man. How do you see you're getting your hand raised?
Well, in my head, I'm planning for a decision, just because it could end like either of us. We're both black belts. Either of us could catch submission, but we're both black belts, so we're both going to be very hard to submit. Either of us could get hit with a head kick or a big punch, get knocked out. So, but again, we're both professional fighters. Neither of us have been knocked out. So, also maybe not the most likely thing. Now, if one of us starts to fade, there's a chance for a TKO, maybe. But I don't see either of us stop quitting. Like, I'm not going to stop unless I'm dead. And I don't think he is either. So I know everyone's like, I'm going to submit him with TKO. I actually think it's going to be a decision between the two of us and see who can win more of the fight.
Well, I cannot wait for it. UFC 261 is one of the best cards of the year, and it's awesome to see you on it here for your second fight inside of the octagon. Again, April the 24th against Pat Sabatini. Much appreciated for the time today, my friend. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Before I let you go, tell people where to follow you on social media, and if you have any sponsors, the floor is yours.
It will follow me, MMA Tristan, on Instagram and Twitter, Tristan Boondock Connelly on Facebook. And yeah, I mean, I got lots of people that have helped me out a lot, so I don't want to miss out and forget. But there's, I'm always giving them shout outs on my page. I want to thank my wife for taking care of our baby back home, and making this possible for me to chase this dream.